March 31st, but that's a Saturday. So if we go with our normal, we would put them out on, available as of Friday the 30th of March, due back by April 16th. So everyone before is going to have to let me know if that's how they want it done again this year. It's usually about a 2-week process.
2 weeks.
It's not necessarily a specific date, that's the date this year. It's so many days before the annual meeting, which happens to be March 31st this year. The date of notice is due in the paper, actually.
Comments? Thoughts?
Yeah, I think if it's, I think we've been good in the past with it. I think it's a routine, seems to be working fine.
Okay, so then they will be available as of the 30th in the district office. If anybody wants one, they can call or come in. Okay, and we'll put that on the website also. But they'll still have to come and get it because they have to sign. Our volleyball camp, last time we had talked about the possibility of having that group come in. I did get from, and they are the All-American Volleyball Camp, is the name of it. They do or will have a certificate of liability to be able to have the camp here. And they will guarantee that we'll have their certificate ahead of time. They sent me one in advance, but it didn't have the additional insurer, which is us. So I said, this will do. So they are going back to their insurance company and they know exactly what they have to do, and they will do it. They want to have the camp here, they're very excited.
Will we have our own people participating in that as well?
Staff?
Yeah.
I know that Mrs. Freya and Mr. Kuhn are interested at this point, just so they have been appointed to next year's volleyball team. But I know that they're interested. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Gazette people don't step up as well. But that, you know, we can now move forward. We're waiting to hear about the insurance. So that was a positive. Up there in those cardboard boxes I wheeled in are our new policy manuals that our three committees wrote last year, or rewrote, I should say. It is now up to the board, and I will give you all the paperwork, to come up with a committee to basically go through and accept the policies. What is stated by Erie Bosse's, though, you have to accept the entire book at once. That surprised me. I thought we would go, I know, group by group, but I have more. Now, they only sent me 7 copies, so before I printed any, is there anybody that would want it electronically? Okay,
I don't have a lot of space open.
Lynn and Rick? Oh, okay. So then, the rest of each night, you take one of those large green books and carefully drop them.
Yep.
Because they come unsprung,
Blue
real
ridge.
cheap holders. Now, we need to get a committee together of board members that would like to be our constant policy committee group.
Doing
I had a feeling
negotiations.
this would be really a positive committee.
I will be a member.
It's gonna be ongoing, right? Because we always need,
And this is a board committee, it's not administrative.
So how often are you gonna meet?
How often you folks want to, no, it has to, it's supposed to be the board level now. I mean, the administration last year stepped in to help, do you know what I mean? But you folks now need to read through it, you know. Okay, raise your hand. So we have Mandy, Randy,
I don't mind being on there.
Tom. Okay, what I'll do is, copy the stuff that they sent to me, and I'll start with you folks initially, and then I'll back up.
And go back one now. What did you say about Erie accepting, and I didn't get that.
She gives us a whole process of how we have to now accept this book. If there's any changes, if there's any, you know, additions, deletions, that type of thing, how to do it, what to do, and how to accept it. So I will give 3 of you all of that. We'll go over it.
there are a lot of additions already, aren't there?
Well, there'll be some that have already come through under different policies, but we need to first accept what we have, and then we can, each month then, we look at the policies after we get through that you take one of those books. Lynn and Rick will get that emailed to you the next day. One of the things, just to let everyone know, the New York, who is currently our computer recs in-house, we had Chris Baxter and Bob Ludlum. Bob Ludlum has taken a new position, which means he's moving up within New York, so we will be losing him in our building. Initially, what they had offered us was to have Chris Baxter would continue Tuesdays and Thursdays. Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be picked up by 3 different people. I told them I didn't feel that was acceptable, that we needed some consistency. We're looking at people coming on in March and being done in June, and what would we get here? So they were willing to allow us to get a refund back from Eric and bring BOCES on. That's what we chose. After I met with Bob again today, because his upper level people didn't like that, basically, they've offered us a consistent person for 3 days, and the same person, Chris, still for the 2 days.
Good.
However, because he made the offer, we still have that offer on the table. I am meeting with BOCES tomorrow because there's some other computer things that we need to take care of, like our servers, and whether or not they're gonna make it through the year. And if they are not going to make it through the year, we would have to switch them over to BOCES. But if we switch them over to BOCES, New York would be able to service them. So we have some real logistical things to discuss with this. So, just to let you know that, and the staff is not aware of this yet, they obviously will be after tonight. Carthage Clinic, and it just was one hit after the next last week. The Carthage Clinic will be closed as of June 25th permanently here in our building. We will not have a health clinic.
Why was that?
Carthage basically, in the health clinic area, went bankrupt, and they're closing 12 clinics, 12 all school-related health clinics. We're also re-looking at some of their services within the hospital. What they quoted to us was that they lost $75,000 this year alone for our clinic only. A lot of that is because of the reimbursable insurances that they did not get reimbursed from, which isn't our issue. It really is a BOCES issue with clinic and policy. It's well above Taylor's County. So 2 years ago, we had
I'm sorry, how much did they say about?
75,000. Now, there's an X amount of dollars that come from state aid and grants to run the clinic. They're saying they were in the whole 75,000 above that. So,
They have a nurse and a.
they have a nurse, a PA, we have a mental health counselor
Okay.
here 3 days a week. There's a dietitian, 1.5 days a week, and then there's the overhaul, of all the other services.
The doctor has to visit so many times.
Dental, I'm sorry, I forgot the dental clinic, the cleanings, the problem being too is they were not picking up the clientele that they were hoping. Their kids were senior, parents would go to Carthage Hospital. So they were not boosting in services either. So their doors will be shut.
Looking for other clinical options.
Well, that's what, 2 years ago, we had the option of choosing between Carthage, Potsdam, and Governor. Potsdam and Governor were 2 new applications we had not received before. But sticking with what we had already had here, knowing Walter Becker, we stuck, basically the board chose to stick with his services, because this has always been his baby. Since Walter is no longer working with Carthage, that's changing everything. I tried to contact the CEO of Potsdam Hospital, and it's not the same person it was 2 years ago. So,
The contact person probably, it's not the same.
right.
CEO is the same, the contact person.
Okay. So I had a call into the business office, Carrie, somebody, maybe you might know her.
Carrie Merchant.
Yes, I had a call into her, to speak to her to see if they're willing to sit down at the table for this, because that was our second choice over Governor. I have no idea where they are. I mean, they had stopped all of their clinic talks after we turned down their offer. What we have to do then is go back through the state, reopen that process, that bid, sit down with them, and put it back out again. And Carthage, it would be willing to sell, rent, whatever, a lot of the equipment they have here.
and they're very willing to help facilitate with any provider who will come in. They will contact them, as soon as we give them an idea, and they, have said they'd be happy to help them through the process. And they've been very generous in trying to help us, but the writing was on the wall. I mean, Carthage was just slipping away, and the sentimental attachment was gone. So, I don't think it was a surprise to anyone. Actually, personally, I felt a relief because they were struggling, and it was, you could see it wasn't gonna work.
One of my other concerns, just to let everybody know, is that the PA that we currently have here at Racheltown, is going to go on maternity leave shortly. They said they had it filled. I don't know if that's the case yet, because my fear is it goes like in 2 weeks. Because that would be very difficult for a lot of families who depend on that. Our mental health counselor that works here in our building 3 days a week has at least a caseload of 20 plus. So that's students that are being seen on a regular basis here. And it's mental health issues more than just school issues. Because it's anything that we feel isn't appropriate just for our school counselor. So that would be an extreme loss here. For us. We did get out today, so I haven't gotten these yet. I know we talked about having a public forum. It is set up on March 14th from 6:30 to 8. And I do have copies of this if anybody wants one back here. Stephen Todd from BOCES will be one of the facilitators. The other will be Nicole Ashley. And basically what's going to happen, it'll be an informational session. We'll have students serving as lead facilitators of groups. There's questions that the groups will answer, then there'll be a large group sharing of all those things, and then it'll go from there. There's also ground rules that have been established, and those will be explained to the group. So mark your calendars for March 14th. What we discussed is that would probably be the best thing, is obviously that none of the board members would be involved in any of the groups, nor would any of the administrators, because we want the community's input. We cannot have all the board members attend either, so you folks might want to talk amongst yourself if any of you want to come. But even on that evening, I wouldn't suggest that perhaps, people need to feel free to say and talk about what they want.
Right.
So that might be a good meeting for another meeting for a budget committee or policy. If people want to get together and stop by and go. But I just wanted to let you know that. So these went out in the mail today.
Where did it?
Downstairs cafeteria, 6:30.
6:30.
So can I interject, the Kaleidoscope concert that was going to be on the 14th has been moved to the 13th to accommodate the public forum on the 14th. So the Kaleidoscope concert is the 13th at 7 o'clock.
I know that we have board members that are on the negotiation committee. We've been given 2 dates to have our first general meeting, March 21st or March 28th. So if those that are on the negotiation committee want to just stop, wait a couple seconds before you leave tonight and tell me which date works best for you, 21st or 28th. And the earliest time that we can give them. They had said 4, and I said that's not going to happen. I know some of you work past that. So the other issue on as far as the pool, to address some of Matt's comments that he had made in his letter. The pool itself, what happened last spring is the same thing that we did every spring. The administration and the PE department sit down, discuss the hours of the pool, the usage, and come up with a schedule. The schedule that came up with last spring is the exact same amount of hours students were in the pool the year prior. So the elementary students from 1st through 5th grade, 6th grade, excuse me, swim 10 weeks. They have 2 5-week periods. The high school students, and if you remember 2 years ago as well, we had parents feel that the high school students shouldn't have to swim 10 weeks, that was too much. High school kids didn't like to swim. So last school year, the high school went to 7 weeks. And this schedule that we had created this year is also 7 weeks for high school students. So there has been no lost time during the school day and phys ed classes for students in the pool.
So
There's no testing out now, so all
No,
of,
there's no
all the
testing
high
out.
school kids? Okay.
Correct. So everyone's taking it within their own cadet class. The other part, the lifeguard class is being offered this year, just as it has been offered in the past. It's the entire school year. One of the changes that happened this year, though, that was different because Red Cross changed their stipulations, regulations, and students had to be able to pass a certain test before they could continue on. If they couldn't pass the test, they couldn't continue in that class. We had a different gym class. So we still have students swimming with 5 or 6 left in lifeguards this year. And as far as using student lifeguards, we've had 2 occasions where we've brought in student lifeguards to man the pool. We also, for swim practice, had 1 student lifeguard on full-time throughout the entire swim practice season, and on all meets 1 student lifeguard who graduated last year, and 1 student who currently. So we have used student lifeguards all school year. The change in services is after school hours or weekends when, no, there is no pool open during those times. But during phys ed, there has been no loss in time of services. The lifeguard themselves has worked anywhere from 17 to 19 and a half hours. For the most part, it's been 17 hours per week. And what the difference is that no maintenance was done as far as cleaning the pool on a regular basis, doing the floors, the metals, cleaning the steps. That's all done now by the actual custodial department. And we have not hired any new custodial people to pick up those duties. It was added into their duties. So I did want to clarify that because we've gotten several concerns that those things are not happening.
They've been successful.
Yes, it has. And if anybody followed the swim team this year, obviously we did have a swim team, and they were successful as well. So, and it's just to point out that, some of the concerns, I just can't substantiate the hours, and I wanted to, I guess, talk about it tonight, because this is the 3rd time that I've gotten stating that kids are getting less time in the pool. That's not the case. Carol and I have more budget to do. Carol, I'm going to turn it over to you first to do that.
I take care of her.
Yes.
We have an attachment to your agenda for resolution for the New York class. That's our investment account. And they're making a couple changes. They're changing from BOCES to Village of Potsdam to be lead participants. And they're also changing the investment company. It's changing to JP Morgan Asset Management and First Southwest Asset Management Company. So there's a resolution attached that you need to approve. Because you'll see if there's been any changes to those within the new class. And since the changing right here, we need to make it out. They won't have any effect except I'm hoping that right now we're not getting any interest income. And they're saying with this, we should get interest income. And I think it's the connection with JP Morgan.
And that doesn't affect anything contractually.
For my knowledge, what's the basis of this cooperation agreement? What does it serve?
Most of the schools and BOCES pool their money, so it's a pool investment.
And how's it, between the Village of Potsdam, what are they doing?
The treasurer, I don't know, he might be the director, or the executive director of Potsdam, is on the board of directors. And so I think Village of Potsdam is just acting as a lead agency. They're not getting any kind of benefit.
Okay. So this is just basically the BOCES board and it oversees the activities.
It used to be the BOCES board, and now it will be Village of Potsdam, because on paperwork, that's what it used to say.
Okay.
But now it's Village of Potsdam.
strange.
Expecting high schools as well.
Everybody that's dealing with class has to look at this.
So you're being more familiar with this than we are, there's no major changes other than,
I don't believe so. I believe it's just name changes. And the investment piece for JP Morgan Chase, so according to them, it's just a really interesting thing.
And what monies would we have in here?
Right now, we have very little. Most of our money is NBT because that's where we're getting more, because right now we don't.
Okay.
financial model. Is there any way, I mean, this is extremely free, whatever.
Carol, do you know this is consent to silver
Yeah. Is there someone that can understand this, would be our auditors or something that can take a look at this, say that there's no harm? I just don't, I have no idea what it is.
Is there any deadline, Carol?
There is.
April 23rd. We'll send it to Andy.
Yeah.
Break it back, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just.
There were a couple of board members that had asked to hand this out in paper, so if you were one of those people who, right, for your packet, then take one. If you weren't one of them, there's not enough for everyone. It's the draft budget. It changes.
There's an extra one.
This is the second draft.
Yes.
This is,
I'll take them for the
Yeah.
Oh,
Everybody get a copy?
I think so.
You and Chris copy today.
Okay, as we discussed, because we've gotten the diesel fuel bid and the fuel bid, which is some of our changes, so we'll go page by page, and we've marked the changes in yellow. Trying to highlight them. We do have the final, BOCES commitment form. Sue and I haven't sat down completely and gone through everything, but I have changed some of the numbers if it was either like a one-line item. I changed those line items. The first one is on page 2. The CBO, the business office. Next year, WinCat costs will be under the CBO. Right now, we're paying it for separately, and then the CBO charge. Next year, it's coming under the CBO. So that's, one change there. Cooperative purchasing, that decreased Because again, I estimated a 5% increase, and now we're doing the actual final commitment numbers.
Carol, if I can, where was the wind cap before listed?
A1680, you'll see that on the next page.
Okay. Okay.
At the top, under legal staff, financial omni group, we just got the renewal statement today, and that dropped down to 3,700. I had kept it the same because I didn't know, but today we got more information, so I decreased that to 3,700. The next group, under 1680,490, that's where I took lead cap out of there. And we also had to pay for EMAC this year to finalize that, so that's a decrease. The next group under special items, BOCES administrative charge and capital budget. Again, those are for the final commitment form. Those are the final commitment. On page 4, the elementary and high school principal, I reduced the salary of the elementary principal at this point in time, and the original projected salary. The next change is on page 6, BOCES occupational ed. And again, that was a decrease according to the final commitment form.
All right.
I don't know. Page 7, 2330 summer school after school. We reduced the after school program because that was being funded, and I had included it in the first draft. So I removed that. And I added $1,500 under the driver ed vehicle. I missed that on the first round. So that was an addition. On the second group, instructional media, there was a decrease under the BOCES LRC and equipment repair for the final commitment. On page 8, under people services, there's an increase of $18,000 for BOCES services. This was school tool that I did miss on the first draft. This was a change we used to have, was it Wicked Good software, and we changed it to school tool.
That 18,000 is software, you said?
Yes, did you answer, Carol? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, not a top, yes.
Thought maybe
I was waiting for my
blanks
notes.
for a second there.
On page 9, 2855, the BOCES athletic director, that's section 10. That was a decrease for the final commitment point. For transportation, decrease for the diesel fuel for the bid. On page 10, under benefits, other benefits, I had $20,000 in there, but we have no retirements coming up, so I took the $20,000 out. It's really failed in sick days. Page 11, fuel oil, we just accepted the fixed price on the fuel oil bid, so I was able to drop that 11,000 debt back down to 114,000. Electricity, I dropped that by $50,000. I got this SMAC estimate, and there's some new, I should say, there's a charge that we're not getting charged this year, and according to the second SMAC meeting I've gone to, it's going to continue as far as next year. They don't know about the next year after that, but we will be able to cut our electric bill by $50,000, or budget by
On the
$50,000.
delivery side or on the, you know?
I think it was the delivery side. I think it's the national business.
Yeah.
I think you were adjusting the delivery rates.
Central service maintenance equipment. John got another quote for the mower, and it's actually $19,000 compared to, he had higher bid there, and it's now down to $19,000.
Yes, we do too.
Okay. And he now has, I'm waiting to go for one more, he now has one down to $19,000.
So the 24 we have now is
19,000 for a mower and 5,000 for miscellaneous.
Okay.
That's on the state bid, right? That's a state.
I he's asking for staple prices.
That's what we did the last time.
So that ends up with all those changes, a total difference of a decrease in expenses of $145,000
Carol, can I just back on page 6, the $50,000 decrease in bulkies? What is that for? Is that actually for the number of kids that go there?
They charge us a 3-year average.
So our 3-year average would be down by that much?
Expenses are a lot smaller.
Okay.
Carol, I thought that I had put in special ed textbook money underneath, page 6 for the special ed.
I might have it under 2110, because they don't give us it under 2250. Check that.
Because I'm wondering, Roger last year said, like, if we don't spend the 40, we don't get the same, you know, like the aid back.
Right, we charge you 2250, they won't pick it up.
It has to be under that one budget code, is what she's saying.
Yeah.
You might have put it somewhere else.
Yes.
Under special ed textbooks, and then she might have, you would say you
Might have
moved it
moved
up. And the DL textbooks would be the same.
And did you check in to see if we can run that Suburban 4-jogger ed if we take the plow frame off it, or?
I did ask about it, and what is basically felt, it's not, because of the condition of it, the dents, the other things, the internal part of the car, it may not be suited still to be able to be drive currently for, I mean, it's very dirty, it's been being used, carried and stuff, but they did not feel it was in good shape to use it, the driver said.
And the other question I had, could you print off what Carol gave us at that other meeting, comparing what, if there would be savings for, we went totally in the business office, or if
I have that, we're not there yet,
Okay, all right.
but I did, I grabbed it.
All right, thank you.
A question on the, Sedell International Principal, you said something about not replacing Ron.
No, what we did at this point, we dropped it down to a starting salary. One of the conversations we have to have this evening now is two things, twofold. One, we had initially put in the paper for an interim.
Okay.
We have 4 applications. We need to decide if we're now going to go through with hiring an interim, and then we need to look at for next year, options of what administrative options are there. 1 being hire a principal, 2 being hire no one, 3 being hiring new students, and put out different duties and jobs for different students.
So this
Or
number,
come up with
so this number doesn't necessarily reflect what it's really,
But what we did was, knowing that Ron is definitely leaving us now, is we dropped it to a more entry level with that.
so this is kind of the worst case, most expense kind of case.
Correct. Well, not most, it's entry level of elementary principal.
What's the third option?
To go with a, dean of students, full-time K-12.
Yeah.
You said you have an administrator here during all the time, either one of you, 3 of you. Would dean of students be able to fall into that category?
The dean of students is not an administrator. The dean of students falls under a different category,
Yeah, she is.
which is why when you do your
She's dean of
administrative aid, it doesn't fall under that.
That one lady that you.
Before we get there, can we let Carol finish this? Only because with the last page. Yeah, she's in there. So you don't have the revenue page?
Yeah.
There's 3 different scenarios here. And if you notice on the bottom, they're all down.
It's amazing how you can do that.
Well, as, I don't have my sheet from last time, but as I told you last time, I'm very conservative, and I don't take all the state aid that the governor proposes. But I had understated foundation aid, building aid, and transportation aid. And I think I was off, I had deducted like 600-something thousand. That really is too much. So I've adjusted that number to a more reasonable number in these two scenarios. The first scenario is the maximum according to property tax cap, which has a 3.06% tax levy increase. And in all these scenarios, I've left the appropriate fund balance. This is what WinCap was telling me, what we appropriate the fund balance at, the $727,000.
Yeah.
So I'm still reducing the state aid rate according to what the governor has said, because we don't always get it. And the transportation is, you have to spend it to get it, postage aid, you have to spend it to get it. So I'm still deducting, I'm still conservative. And on the bottom here, it shows you what I'm deducting from what the governor says. So that really is your call. If you want me to change those numbers and add more back, that is up to you. So as I said, the first scenario is a 3.06, the maximum according to the property tax calculation. The second scenario is a flat 2% property tax increase. And as you see, we're using more of what the state is being proposed. The third proposal is a 0% tax levy increase. And again, we're using a little bit more of the state aid.
So the state aid portion is still a risk until the budget's passed, state budget's passed? Do we know?
Well,
When do you know
one,
exactly what you
until the state budget's passed, and until we file our reports at the end of the year, and until they figure out what they're doing. So really, we don't know what our state aid money is until November, December of next year. That's one of the reasons why I really do like to be very conservative on this side, because I would really hate to say, we're going to push that to
Right.
And then that's like you're giving the front back.
So you,
But, down here, I'll show you the amount that I deduct out of each.
right,
I left those the same, I left $34,000 deduct on all scenarios. You do have the option of, increasing the fund balance appropriated instead of doing the additional state aid.
so we may get that level of state aid, because what you're saying is possible for that. And if we don't, you have to use more of the fund balance to cover it. That's risk management that we have to deal with.
Have you heard any word of whether the budget's gonna be on time this year?
They've been very quiet. Usually the legislators are out here gathering. I'm hoping it's this week in the legislative process. I'm hoping there's some kind of update.
It is very strange.
It is.
Usually
we know
the
it.
sides are going back and forth at this point, and nobody
But
seems
to
to be
be
doing
honest with you,
anything.
the government is very powerful in what
Yes.
he wants to get. So, maybe that's why there's no chatter.
Maybe.
Because he's already told them, they're just quiet. They're sitting in the corner saying, okay.
Okay.
But I haven't even heard whether they're thinking they're gonna have an online budget. And it's not even that so long, but there's no discussion.
Usually there's.
No, I don't think there's even been any action.
Yeah.
So with all the cuts of things that you're, prices, like you said, once we got this, we have a, $145,000 then that we basically took out of the budget, where we were able to fix things and calculate it.
Plus we have a little bit more, in the state aid estimates, so that helps cover this.
Right, it helps where, in the area where it said shortfall,
Yeah,
yes. Yes, that's not a guarantee.
that number is understood.
Correct. That's the scary part.
And that's the same every year, right? I mean, you never know what you're gonna get.
Correct.
So you have to, is there any past history that says that based on where you think you're gonna be in March and where you end up in November, how close tied they are? Is there anything you can just?
Foundation aid.
Oh, yeah.
Well, foundation aid usually is a given. Last year, the state was very creative and came up with this math deduction. So all of a sudden, we started having these deductions out of the state aid.
that was something after the budget was passed, after our fiscal year started, after they started paying us, we started getting this deduction. And it was money that was deducted that we weren't getting back. Sometimes when they have cash flow problems, they'll deduct and then we'll catch up before June 30th. That was money that they just deducted and you never got it back. So, New York State is a funny state to work with
Yeah.
because you don't know. Like I said, BOCES and transportation aid are expense driven.
Mhm.
You know, if we don't spend it, we don't
You
get
don't
it.
get it, right?
Any comments on the budget, folks?
Well, at this point, we're not seeing a shortfall.
In the budget though is the fund balance of $727,000.
That's what we started out with last week.
Yes, but I'm just saying, it's not that we're coming
Not
to zero,
zero.
we are using that much of the fund balance. But there's no additional shortfall, that is correct.
Okay, we've covered the shortfall that we had
Between
previously.
what we took out and Carol putting the transportation aid in there.
Is there any other major variables in the overall budget, cost-wise, that bite us, other than things like CNC that you don't know, you never know?
Right.
No major infrastructure things that, I mean, other than unforeseen?
Right. I mean, that's where Tom asked this, and I handed around the other sheet that basically gives us some other things, that were, some of it was discussed at the, committee meeting of the budget. And one of the things that was asked for was, the price to share a cafeteria manager. And if you look, that's the second thing on the sheet of what it would cost to share. And we have to remember the first year you don't collect the aid, you get it the following year.
Mhm, mhm.
And Carol, I don't know if you can explain that any better. Basically, by sharing the cafeteria, and I did not get to speak to Artie Frigo, who is the BOCES person to get all the Uber answers from. But in order to have him here 60%, the initial cost is $62,000.
Versus our full-time manager, 61.
Yes. And now, what you have to remember, that's full-time and benefits of our manager. Now, eventually, the next year, the aid would kick in, the cost would be $30,854. But what you also have to think about that is, 2 days a week, there would not be a manager here.
Yes, who would do the, you'd have to pay someone to step forward and do the supervision when somebody wasn't here supervising. Correct, so you would have to figure in that amount also.
And yes, that would be my guess or recommendation.
Yeah.
Two quick questions. The full-time manager, you said it's not fully loaded for benefits and everything? That's 61?
No, that's their, that's
the
what we
base.
pay those. That doesn't.
61.
That's
eating her.
61 is the cost. That's cap, that's salary. That's Kathy's, yes, I'm sorry, I thought you were asking
No,
for
no,
62.
so that is fully loaded. then.
Yes, yep.
And with any BOCES employee, you have administrative costs and all those things also. Are they figured in here?
Okay, is that in the 62,280?
Yeah.
Okay, so when our administrative cost goes up across the board, that's not in a different place? Yes, there's, BOCES administrative cost is one line, but there's a little bit of administrative cost. Because the oversees the program. Okay. Okay.
So it's not just right through the,
Right, great,
And that's in here.
yes, that's part of the 62,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Did they look at it, I mean, have you talked to these folks at all? to
I have
see what-
not been able to.
Okay. I'm just wondering if they look at the operations down there and they look at what our balance sheet is, if they would be able to give you an idea that we can put you on an even balance sheet.
What our budget committee, and budget committee, feel free to speak up, but one of the things we talked about, we'd kind of like to have a neutral person come in and
Yes,
Assess.
do an assessment of the cafeteria, of the hours. I do have Angie doing a drop sheet of, starting at 10 years, 8, 6, 4, 2, what our staff costs in hours have been for the evening years, for about 5 years ago, actually, you know. So we're, should be getting that in the next day or two. But there's a lot of factors that we feel like Frigo,
Mhm.
is that the most open-minded person that could come in to give us recommendations, if that's who we're gonna hire in place of.
A little biased probably, but
Yeah.
So we were not sure of any other food service person to bring in to basically do a study, or didn't really even know where to go to find it.
Former retired
I
manager?
don't know.
Okay,
Wonder if Airmark would do that.
well,
Well,
that was one of the
that's one
places
option
that
there,
brought
Mark,
in.
and we work with one,
Yes.
Okay,
so,
And they
do audits.
they come in and they'll just do it out and hand you just like the way out the door. 'Cause
That would be good.
let's assume there's a cost, and then just ask.
Sure, it depends, if it's a, if they look at it as a sales opportunity.
Yep. So that's the cafeteria manager. The next, the bottom one is the full-service CBO. We were asked to get the prices of that, which basically would include the full-time position being a business manager, still currently, which is what Carol is serving us in this year.
Mhm.
And then our account clerk will be shared amongst other schools. They will do accounts payable versus payroll. And then another person would come in to do payroll in our building. So Carol, if you want to go ahead and explain the costs out.
Well, the BOCES cost would be the $189,321, and that would include everything, that salary, benefits, equipment, conferences, materials and supplies, travel, WinCap, anything to do with the operation of the CDL. So that would be if you paid BOCES, for the full service. If you kept it in-house, as it is right now, so you have Angie full-time, and then you still have, the business management piece only through the CDO, that cost would be $148,191.
So that cost goes down this year.
Because we have a,
So are we comparing the 148 to the 189?
Yeah.
So,
following.
And you get flows,
gotcha.
on the 189, it flows the following year,
Just,
approximately 95,000.
So the difference in these numbers is gonna be the same, well, you're gonna cut the state aid up the following year. Is that correct?
does the state aid pick up for any of the difference? Okay, so if we look at 140, what your budget this year looks like, how much of that is covered by state aid? How much
You
would
get BOCES aid on the 63.
Which is Carol's portion of the CBO.
Okay. So if we did full service, how much of that is covered by any type of state aid reimbursement?
The 189, there's some things that aren't aidable.
Mhm.
So according to Nikki, you can aid of 95,531. I think out of the 63, I think your aid's at 25,000.
So we have 25,000 off 148,000.
You said that?
That wouldn't kick in until next year.
The 25,000 you'll get next year because you paid the 63 this year.
Mhm.
If you went full service next year, the following year, 13, 14, you'd get the 95.
So you take,
You have to pay out pay.
so we spend, hypothetically speaking, we get 25 back, so that's a wash. But you spend 40,000 more this year to save 50,000 next year. Does that sound right? So the difference between this year and if we did a CDO would be $40,000. So we have to pay that extra money.
Yeah.
But next year when we get reimbursed, we're gonna be reimbursed 90,000 instead of 25,000. So we're gonna get reimbursed, was it 65,000? So you take the 65 off the 189, it's like 120,
probably already. I
A
don't
lot of
know.
numbers.
It's there, a lot of numbers.
It's really, I mean, it's hard to compare one year to the following year,
Yeah.
because there obviously will be increases in it. But basically what we're saying is for next year, we would be at 123,191.
Right, if you take the 25 off of the 148.
Right,
Yep.
so then, but that would be next year. Then the following year, you would have to take another whatever off of it to then be comparable to 93,790.
Oh, okay, all right,
So there's still obviously the savings.
okay. But you don't see it till the year two.
Correct. The greater
But
savings.
we have to invest $40,000 this year
Correct.
to see that savings the
2
following year.
years, because you get 25 and then on
Right.
that again.
Right.
Yes.
You did go pictures or something.
It is, it's very confusing.
So that's 3 different people taking care of our. Do we have somebody here all the time? Is there one person gonna go?
Yeah, you get a part-time CSC, and a full-time.
Is that how that works?
The scenario would be that Angie would be here 3 days a week and the payroll would be here 2 days a week and I would be 2 days a week. So there would be a clerk here every day of the week.
How does that affect our operations, or does it?
If the picture falls as Carol presents it, it doesn't affect it as greatly, because there would still be a body here.
Okay.
However, a payroll person is gonna have no idea what
Right.
anybody else is doing.
Mhm.
And I have to say, just the advantage of Angie in the office is she can go in and find anything of Carol's and be helpful when she's here. Bring a third person in, they're not gonna know either of the other 2 jobs, but she has the advantage, she's been here for 11 years too.
Sure.
The accounts payable, I mean, the payroll person will only be payroll. They will not be able to cross the board, whereas right now, Angie can cross into other things.
And they will only do it in one day. If there's a problem with payroll, you're gonna have to wait and go through until the payroll person's back, if you wanna go in and speak to them about it. And I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here because I am, been here when BOCES took care of our business office before. And I will remind people who don't know what it was like, it was terrible. It did not go well. I would like to think that BOCES had learned a lot in the time since they were here. Carol has done a wonderful job, and she's a great person. But the truth is, BOCES has not really met their obligations with us already this year. Obviously, when we had to bring Roger back in to take up the slack because BOCES wasn't ready when they said they would be ready. And they simply haven't followed through on what they said they were going to do. Carol is here as often as she can be, but it did not start out the way it should have been. We're still not always aware when she's going to be here. Personally, I feel having our own person in the business office who is here to help us take care of things that pop up when BOCES people can't be here, I think is very important to our school. I think it's very important to the morale in our building, to know that the person you walk into in the business office is somebody who cares about this school, who wants this school to succeed. And I think it's very important if we keep our own employee in the business office who's watching out for us. And that's my view. And a lot of that is based on past experience with a total BOCES business office. And I will say though, it has been wonderful. And probably any other business BOCES person wouldn't have done as good a job, but she can only do what her boss tells her to do. And
Weren't some of the problems because Roger didn't keep good books?
no, that was not. The reason was they weren't prepared to come in here that many days a week. And they have obligations at other schools. And although Carol, from what I understand, tried very hard to let people know when she was gonna be here. She still has obligations at other schools. And, you know, when we're sitting here trying to get a budget ready and we don't know when she's gonna be here, then we're kind of putting things together at the last minute, and nobody wants to work that way. Things are getting better, I will say that, but there's never a guarantee that tomorrow she'll be gone, because she's a BOCES employee.
Mandy, won't these numbers
No
we're looking at right
guarantee
here
Angie won't be gone tomorrow.
be here next year at this time?
I couldn't say that, I just
Not,
know,
not the exact numbers, but the same theory, part-time and full-time.
well, I would assume so.
My,
I just,
inclination
you
is
know.
to wait and see how this year presented before we
Jump
throw everything into the
all
ring.
in, right.
Is there other schools, Carol, that you guys do a full service? Other districts?
We have 6.
6.
Going smooth?
That's the way people that went, because the person we replaced BOCES with, and it was such a screw up, he was worse than BOCES, and he was in-house. So
What type of,
it makes a difference who you got running the operation, whether it works or it doesn't work.
That's right.
What type of activities would get screwed up? What would make you not be happy?
Better than our teachers and programs.
Somebody that I talked to in the maintenance department remembered, a simple thing like putting a purchase order in to get something repaired. It wouldn't be done properly, and there wouldn't be anybody here to do the purchase order. It took a lot longer to get even simple things like that done.
They do a great job, I'm not saying that, I'm
Oh,
just
right.
saying that we give them a period of time, instead of throwing, jumping
Mm-hmm.
overboard and saying,
Right,
Of
yeah.
let's
course,
give them everything, let's
that's how they operate.
see
Ease
how
our
the
way
year
into it.
progresses, and if it's flawless and everybody votes on that page, well, then let's look at it again.
Mhm.
Well, now to complicate things, we probably are bigger opportunities in the cafeteria,
Yeah.
you know, I mean.
This person, or whatever, gets in here and comes in, does an audit of the cafeteria, that is to see whether it's, I shouldn't say mismanaging labor, but
That's part of the reason I asked, you know, 10-year study of these years, to look at why our staff has gone up, how many hours it's gone up every other year, and why. Because obviously, our student number has continued to go down, but our staffing hours have continued to increase. And what I did also was I had contacted 4 other schools with comparable numbers to see how many staff they have on, what their open hours of the cafeteria was. We have already, since the last time we met, started serving breakfast in 1 cafeteria. The upstairs is no longer open. So we, for some savings there, brought the cafeteria downstairs. I did speak to Kathy, and the 1 position that was being filled for the time is no longer being filled. I still feel like there's possibility of still extra hands in there that we've gone through the years.
I printed off the menus from 3 or 4 different schools. It just seemed that those menus, they had what right in it, like homemade scalloped potatoes for like that. They had homemade stuff in it. I honestly think if it doesn't come out of a can, we don't have it here. And I just think, I mean, it's simple, like I mentioned, Jell-O. Geez, it just seems like you could make a big thing of Jell-O, whether it was sugar or sugarless, you know, and that would be, we could save money, but yet still have it better for the kids, you know.
One of the things that I'm just in defense of the cafeteria, there are some homemade things here. I don't know if they're introduced as that. There's usually a homemade soup, every other week. There is homemade lasagna. There are some homemade things. I'm not saying they're regular, and I don't know that she ever presents them that way. And I'm not trying to argue, I'm just trying to bring up the point to let you know that some of that is true. But I do think we need to look at those type of things. One of the other things I did want to mention, because we talked about the Crustables a couple weeks ago. the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, those are on state contract. So we're not, those, if we weren't getting them there, we would not be using all of our funds through state contract.
You brought up also that the new dietitian requirements that the Obama administration has come out with may be an issue that we
Very
have
much
to
so.
deal with.
Yes.
And the other thing is, someone mentioned that the cafeteria wasn't really user-friendly, the way it's physically set up.
Physically not set up well. It really
Can we make
poorly
changes,
done.
can we make changes in a building without having to,
You're not gonna do it without a major